I know.
Of season one. That was season
Yeah, I know. Remembering to breathe.
Okay, well, I didn't want
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, what can I do to help? Ooh, this is fancy. I love it.
There's a lot of distractions. Including my husband actually emergency this morning to try to get an abscess to taken care of. And he just couldn't go. Yeah. We've been all day. Yeah. Yeah. We just looked at that.
You're giving me an indication on top of boards and atmosphere. Before the holidays, just so before the week excited.
Never takes that.
Which I have. A realtor that's. Yes, I'm trying to retire. You're in the center of love. I don't know about that. Yeah. Well, it's, I know what it's, I can say this is the job, it's just be patient and make different right opportunities. I think there's kind of those that so I'm waiting, you know. Yeah. Absolutely. I always decide most of the time we're getting experience, but I understand you don't have the best.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? No politics. A slated political party, okay? We've been voting for the left, you know, like, we've been flying on permit. Forget about the wings, let's focus on the bird. The bird is 8% of the right? The wings are the extremes, the bird is like everybody else.
Yeah.
Big bird party. We need to. So we need someone outside. Forget about the final circle, right? The final circle, and then bird.
Yeah. Not taking weight.
We have enough fruit here. Yeah. I feel like reorganize the stage anyway. I'll smooth this back a little bit so they have a bit more room. That's okay. This is towards the end. Oh, yeah, so typically what happens is we start with a song usually on like YouTube, so if you have a song, you can start. Then I'll come up and I'll talk about the community, just do like the kind of house and stuff. Then Linda will come up. And then typically after the talk, we go into some kind of meditation. So whether it's a guided meditation or and then we spend the rest of the time. The most important part is yes, so just the talk. So once you start the meditation, I'll turn off the recording. But yeah, there's yeah. thinking about investing in yeah, actually, oh my, we should that's right.
Oh, you are? Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear it on the screen? Feels quiet. Is this better now? Can you hear it on the speakers? Yeah. Excellent. It is 10:30, my friends. We are going to slowly but surely, yeah. I know. Many more opportunities to talk and share coming up.
Yeah, that's my bar.
I like the mushroom. Very nice. Welcome to the center of love. I know she's in the bathroom. It's okay. Well, I'll wait. We are patient here. Patient and forgiving.
Tomorrow, yes.
I know. Still a few people straggling about.
Sorry.
Yeah. Looks like we have a spill on aisle 3 as well. I see. Merci, Richard. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the center of love yet again. Good to see old, new, familiar, lovely faces. For the folks joining us online, hello. I think it's just Sylvie. Bonjour, Sylvie. Bonjour. How's everybody doing today? Good, excellent. So I'm learning lessons as part of this community. I'm learning how to communicate more effectively and clearly, and how to communicate my expectations when I ask for help. So for example, when I ask you if you want to host one of these gatherings, the part that I'm doing right now is part of that. So if you're hosting, you would come up and you would say hi to everybody, and you would say good morning and welcome to the center of love, and this is what we're all about. So that's from now on, that's explicit. So thank you. I did not express that to our dear friend today, and so for that reason, I am here now with no scripting and no preparation whatsoever. So I'm going to try my best to take us through a quick introduction of the Center of Love. Who here has never been here before? Oh, just our lovely guest speaker. And yes, excellent. So the point of the Center of Love is it's a spiritual community without hierarchy, without dogma. And instead of being limited to one book or teacher, we're open to all traditions, as long as they incorporate, honor, or even centralize love as the guiding principle. So as you probably know, most people who have any passing awareness of religion and organized religion and scripture will know that love plays a central role in every single major religion, tradition, spiritual path, whatever you want to call it. So therefore, all religions belong to us, my friends. We get to pick and choose. We get to cite from any book we want to cite from. We get to extract wisdom and principles and ideas from anywhere we wish, as long as it helps us in our mission to lead with love. And another note, real quick, we are a community of like-hearted people. We are not necessarily like-minded. And I like to bring this up because it's quite important. We can disagree on a variety of things. For example, whether we are spiritual beings having a material experience or material beings having a spiritual experience. You might think that it's one, I might think that it's the other, but because we're not here to be like-minded, but like-hearted, those little disagreements, they get washed out. What we focus on is being loving, honoring people's truths, and really listening when people share what they have to say. And sometimes that can be challenging. But because we're all here in the spirit of love and we're all here to work together and to grow together and to enact meaningful change in the world together, we can handle those uncomfortable little situations when they come up. So very different from a traditional church, very different from a traditional organized religion. I like to say that we are a disorganized religion. And so that's the center of love in a nutshell, my friends. Thank you all for being here in person, online. Thank you for bringing your presence, your energy, your vulnerability, and everything else that you share with us. We're so blessed. With that being said, we have a guest speaker today, and it's going to be a very, very engaging and interesting and worthwhile time together. And in order to set up the speaker and the topic, I would like to invite Linda to come up here and say a few words, please. Which one do I have? Oh, yes, let me adjust. This is Ray's job usually. Yeah, this one will be the speakers.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I never could have said it the way you say it. Anyway, welcome everybody. I met Jessica kind of in a roundabout way. I had signed up to take a course that sounded really, it wasn't a course, it was just a one-time event. And I thought it was with Nicholas. And well, I didn't really think about who it was with. It was what it was about that I wanted to experience. It was advertised as breath work and singing bowls and cacao elixir and a few other things, and it sounded really interesting, and I signed up, and it just happened to be Mother's Day, but no one noticed the date. It was last May. No one noticed that it was Mother's Day, and then when it got closer to the date, Nicholas realized that everybody's canceled. So he phoned me and said, do you want to, I'll do it with you alone. I don't need to cancel. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. Make you do that. Just come for me. And so I just left my deposit. And then when Jessica put another posting on for Egyptian goddess, I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So I signed up with a friend, got a friend to go with me. And yeah, kind of the rest is history, but we just had an amazing experience. I've never done breath work like that before, and never experienced the singing bowls like that. They're so beautiful, and they just send me off into outer space, I think. I'm just it's such an amazing experience. I wanted it to last forever. When you said, okay, we're almost done, I wanted it to go on and on. So after that experience, I signed up for another one. And that was completely our choice. She gave us our choice of what we wanted to Cover and Candace and Cressa and my other friend Andrea. We met in her studio, and we had another amazing event, and that we chose ancestral healing. And yeah, I had a really touching experience with my paternal grandmother, and that was something I'll never forget. It was really, really beautiful. So anyway, we're here to hear her. We want to know everything about, about breath work, and Jonathan knows a lot too. He's very knowledgeable about breath work and how it affects you, everything. We're interested in it all. Yes, yes. And that's what we're about, love, center of love. So I'm going to leave it up to you.
So what's interesting is Nicholas's younger brother's name is Jonathan. So I think you were channeling his younger brother there. Well, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, just let me know if I'm talking loud enough.
Okay.
So I was invited to come. Thank you so much for allowing me the space to share with some new faces. And when I was asked to talk about the breath, it's like there's just infinite possibilities for where you can go with this. So one thing I've yet to really do, though, is to kind of articulate my story of how I arrived at the breath. So that's sort of where we're going to go with us today. And since I'm meeting you all for the first time, it might be nice for you to kind of get a sense of how I arrived at this point here and now with all these colorful rainbow bowls. So quick question. Are we all breathing? Yeah. Hands up if you're not breathing. And then the next question is, can you just give yourself a little pause here and just feel your breath? And maybe that means placing a hand on your heart, hand on your belly, and just take a moment to just come into this beautiful connection that we have to the spirit of this moment, which is through our breath. And for some of us, maybe we've arrived here in a bit of a hurried way. So maybe our breath is feeling a little short. And for some of us, maybe we've arrived in a very relaxed way. Maybe our breath is feeling really relaxed and long and luxurious on the exhale. So just give yourself this little sacred pause here, just to connect inwards. And on average, it's said that humans take about 22,000 breaths a day. And when you think about that, how many of those breaths are really taken consciously? How many of those breaths are really taken with the total reverence of this beautiful gift that we have, of this life that we've been given? Not as many as probably we would like. So no judgment. I'm also in that same boat of there are days that go by and I realize I've just been so unconscious with my breath. Okay, take a moment, pause, connect in. And every time I do, I learn so much about myself. So the breath is very mysterious still in some ways, but it is the spiritual embodiment of life force energy. And it has the ability to be a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. So I'm going to try to dissect that a little bit, but that can also be a whole nother talk on its own. So you may have seen in all sorts of different languages, different traditions, the word breath being expressed in different words. So prana, you may recognize that word from ancient Indian scriptures, which means sacred life force energy. You may see the word chi. Traditional Chinese medicine describes chi as the cosmic essence, the energy of life, as well as the air we breathe. Then there's the word pneuma in ancient Greece, which refers to both air and the breath and the spirit of the moment, the essence of life even. So there's all these different ways that the breath has been described, and it's certainly been around for the beginning of time. So my journey began when I was 19 years old. And like most of us, my spiritual journey began with yoga. So I first met the breath through very simple pranayama techniques. And when I was 19, I certainly approached yoga from a place of like, it's something that you got to do because you got to get in shape. So it was more physical and it was more about just going and like toning my muscles and not really aware that there was perhaps something that was maybe more internal that could potentially be experienced. It was more looking at yoga from an external lens. So that was sort of my beginning intro to breathing. And yeah, it was only really 15 years later, 2018, 2019, I decided, I think I want to become a yoga teacher. So at this point, I was an elementary school teacher from 2007, and I thought I was going to be an elementary teacher for the rest of my life. And that was kind of the trajectory I was on, because as a 5-year-old, I decided that I would be a teacher, and that's just what I was going to do. So eventually 2018 comes around and I'm like, oh, there's this beautiful welcome. Yeah, this opportunity to go to Vancouver and learn from this fellow named Ian Finn, and his school of yoga is called Blissology Yoga. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. So I pursued a yoga teacher training and I left full-time teaching so I could have more space to just do the things that I wanted to do for myself and the things that my soul was actually calling for. So it was in that pause that I took from full-time teaching that I suddenly had all this space to breathe, you would say, and then to also start exploring different modalities. So yoga was one of them. And then I started to explore plants and fungi medicine and starting to expand my mind in different ways. And I would say that was when I also began this initiation into ancestral healing, which is where primarily a lot of my spiritual journey has been focused on, is really looking at inherited trauma that, you know, we all carry within our bones. So at this point, though, I would say I was still looking at the breath in terms of just really how it can be useful for relaxation and mindfulness. So I would share breath techniques with different people. At school, I started teaching yoga for teachers in different schools in the Saanich School District. But it was always about like, how can we relax? And that was it. So, and even with kids, I, would teach kids breathing techniques, which is much more challenging than you might think, because they're very busy. So I was still just like, not quite getting it. Like, why is everyone so fascinated with the breath? This multidimensionality of the breath is just not quite there. So it wasn't until eventually I learned about Wim Hof. And if you don't know who Wim Hof is, he's the Iceman. And his story is like so profoundly inspiring in so many ways. So he has a style of breath work that's called Wim Hof, and it's very aggressive and it's very masculine and it's very like, potent and intense in so many ways. So I kind of learned about him then, but I still wasn't totally into breath work because again, it was just so aggressive that it just didn't feel like me. However, it did allow me to find the edges of discomfort in a way that, made it a little bit more accessible. And I started doing cold exposure, like cold ocean dips, and I really appreciated him for that, but still not quite understanding what the breath can offer. So then in 2019, in the summer, I was invited to go to Whistler, to go to Wanderlust, which was a yoga festival. And my yoga teacher was headlining and he was like a bit of a rock star. So we all followed him to go to Whistler and go to Wanderlust. And there's all sorts of offerings that you can go to. And one of them was breathwork. So I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. This woman from Montreal was offering a breathwork class and I'll give it a try. And when I walked into the room, it was in one of the beautiful convention centers in Whistler. There was at least like 60 plus people in this room and they were all laying out their yoga mats. And I thought, okay, like this is a lot of people. And then my first ever real breathwork experience, within not even 10 minutes of people starting to breathe and people starting to open, the sounds that came from people, like I couldn't handle it. Like I was so incredibly uncomfortable that people who were total strangers in a room could be that emotive, that expressive. Like the craziest sounds I've ever heard was just all of a sudden happening around me. And I couldn't deal with it. All I could do was laugh. So I was just so uncomfortable. All these people are having all these big breakthrough moments, and I'm just like, is this even happening? There's no way this is real. Like, we literally just started breathing. I don't understand. Like, this is too much. I can't deal with it. And I was just so uncomfortable because I had never been around people that were that willing to be so expressive with their emotions. And of course, in retrospect, I felt all this shame, like, oh my gosh, I was laughing and all these people were having all these like beautiful breakthrough moments. But it was just such a beautiful turning point for me, because that's when I realized, okay, there is something to this breath, because if that many people could have that experience, like, what is going on? So the very next thing I did after Wanderlust was like, oh, where can I get more breath work? And then in 2019, in December, I happened to be at the Church of Truth because there was a holotropic breath work. And that's where I met Ivana and her husband. So we came into the Church of Truth, and it was a 2-day immersion in holotropic breathwork. Holotropic is essentially a word that means moving towards wholeness. It's a style of breathwork that was developed by a fellow named Stan Groff in the 1970s. And he's a pioneer when it comes to research that was done with LSD. And him and his partner, Christina, developed holotropic breathwork as a way for people entering into these non-ordinary states of consciousness. So when that showed up at the Church of Truth, after my weird kind of Wanderlust experience, I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. But little did I know, holotropic breathwork is a 3-hour ceremony that you breathe for yourself for 3 hours. And you have someone, in this case, it was a stranger that I had just met, that comes in as your sitter. So one person's a breather, one person's a sitter. And the music is like concert level loud, and it's the most evocative music, and it's very intense, and it's very cinematic, and it was just like a full sensorial experience. And again, still not totally sure what's going on, but I had the most visceral, the most visual, just so real, the experience I had, where I was seeing all sorts of different images from what I believe to be different timelines from different lives that I've led. And I thought, oh my gosh, I did not even know that that was possible. So then that's the point where I was like, okay, I need to learn about this. I need to study this. The yoga teacher saying, it's like, I'm into it, but like this, there's something different about it. It just seems so efficient. Why does the breath do that? So I quickly learned that there was February 2020, there was going to be a conscious connected breathwork immersion from this fellow in Calgary named Trevor Yelich. And he was offering his Pneumasomatics breathwork facilitator training. So I kind of started on that journey, and conscious connected breathwork, though it has moments of intensity, it's a bit more feminine in the way that you can choose what's appropriate for you. So just like we breathe with, Candace and Linda and Cressa, each person is coming in with whatever it is that they're navigating. Maybe they do want more of an intense experience. Maybe they're actually just looking for it to be slow and gentle. So there's just like a little bit more room for people to really choose for themselves how they wish to breathe. And with conscious connected breathwork, essentially all you're doing is you're connecting your inhales and your exhales. So essentially your breath makes an infinity. You remove the pauses between each breath, and you could potentially come into a space within yourself where you become breathed. And that's where you're no longer in the mind, you're fully embodied. You become essentially your breath, which is the spirit of life. So I was incredibly enthralled by conscious connected breathing. And the first training I did was so heart opening, and I released a lot of grief that I was holding. And I finally felt my heart in a way that I'd never really felt before. And then once again, doing it in a group was just so beautiful, because we were all seeing our own humanity, and we're all seeing how we're all connected, just like the breath connecting in and out. We were all weaving all of our stories together, and it was such a profound experience. So eventually I had to keep learning more, and I got into the second level of breath work. I got to the third level. But eventually I realized, we can talk about the breath all we want. We can read the textbooks. And if you're ever wanting to get into breath work, this book is by far the most impactful on the presence process. And anyone who's interested in breath work and you just want to start practicing 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, I mean, this is the book for you. but that's all great. You can read all you want. You can take all the courses you want. But it was when I met Nicholas in January of 2021. And then I realized, and he had already come from Saskatchewan with a whole bunch of experience with breathwork. And I realized, okay, I can keep doing courses and I can keep studying and I can keep doing all that. And I still do. And I still have, explored all sorts of different modalities, including Reiki and obviously sound and learning more about grief. But I also need to start integrating and sharing the gifts that I've already learned about the breath. And by breathing as often as we were when we first met and still do breathe as often as we do, I was learning so much about myself, and I was learning about this ceremonial side of myself where I know I was doing this before. I've done this before. I've breathed in communities before. I've breathed in more of a shamanic perhaps setting before. How do I just know how to do this so well? And yes, I've had some great teachers, but there was something that was coming alive every time I would breathe, shedding as many layers as I was of my past, specifically related to my grandmothers and what occurred with them in the past, and how I was just the first one in my family to really kind of unhook these, just these really horrific traumatic stories that I've been carrying within myself. And as I was releasing and releasing through the breath, going into all these beautifully impactful journeys at home or with community, I could just feel that there was this inner knowing, this inner standing that I can do this without having to always look outside over there for more information and more instruction, more like I can just start doing it. So when I met Nicholas, we just started. We started hosting ceremonies at our place in Souk. We opened the doors during COVID where nobody was supposed to be gathering, especially not breathing on top of each other. We allowed people to come together and just share their human experience. And it was, yeah, the fastest track of my growth, my evolution came from all those breathing circles. And I would say that conscious connected breathing allows you to get so clear with what you have going on in any given moment, because we can't lie to the spirit of the moment. So when you choose to go inwards, and usually we lay down when we breathe and we go into 1 hour or 3 hour, not quite 3 hour, 1.5 hour. We've done maybe 2 hour journeys, but when we choose to consciously lay down and be with our breath, there's just so many realizations, so many insights, and just so much clearing and detoxifying and just inner harmonizing that can occur, that we really have not stopped breathing ever since since January 2021. But what I will say is that the acceleration of growth was way beyond anything I'd ever experienced. So I've done talk therapy. I've done lots of talk therapy. I've done lots of retreats, different spiritual retreats, Vipassana. I've done lots of meditation. I've done a lot of different modalities, but every time I come to the breath, there's just such an honesty that comes out, because you can't hide from yourself. And when you breathe, there's nowhere to go. Just in and more in and more in and more in. So I became, quite aware of how much I was holding in my being from my family, from my ancestors. And I went through a whole bunch of dark nights of the soul during that time. Kind of April 2021, I would say, was definitely some of the darkest moments where I was just uncovering so much that I wasn't aware. Memories from the past that I had not even remembered, things that were just cloudy, fuzzy, hidden in the shadows. All of a sudden, my breath was like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? Are you ready for this? And, we always say to people, the breath doesn't give you anything that you're not quite ready for. And I certainly must have been ready for it because I was given a whole buffet worth of material to navigate my way through. But thankfully, I had the breath. And the breath in the moment really helps you to integrate whatever it is that's being kind of revealed. But also with integration came a lot of time in nature. Thankfully, we were living in the woods. So there was the forest right behind our house, and I was often in the woods. So all these years later, the breath still has me so inspired. And why? Because there's infinite ways to work and play when it comes to your breath. So endless inspiration to dream with, to inner travel with. We used to call our breathing ceremonies inner traveling ceremonies, where you can just close your eyes, especially during COVID. So you don't have to worry about getting a plane ticket. You don't have to worry about all sorts of nonsense. You just close your eyes and go in on whatever journey you want to take. You want to explore what it's like to live in Lemuria? Go for it. You want to take a trip to Egypt? Go for it. There was just so many ways that we could play with the breath. So no matter what I'm navigating in my life, the breath has always been my go-to reliable ally and always seems to serve exactly what I need most in the exact moment, which may mean sometimes I go into a deep, lucid dreaming like meditative state. And sometimes when I breathe, I just fall asleep. And that's okay. And sometimes we have people come to ceremonies and they fall asleep. And then they get all like embarrassed, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was sleeping. And it's like, well, actually, that's probably what you needed, was just to rest. And that's okay, because your breath knows. Your breath is your breath friend. It knows what's up. So, most ceremonies that we have created in all the years that we've been doing this have literally come from breathing. So it has been a source of so much inspiration. Anytime I feel stuck, including what the heck I was going to say here today, I had to lay down last night and breathe. And I actually breathed the other day too, because I was like, oh my gosh, there's just so many ways that we can go with this. So what am I actually going to share? So each breath, really is a journey. And each time you go into your breath, you're a totally different person. So that's what's so beautiful, is no two breath journeys are the same. So there's no way you can ever get bored. And if you're getting bored with your breath, then perhaps you're getting bored with life, because the breath is your life. So, I joke around by saying that through breathing, I've become very good at dying, maybe a professional even. As each time I breathe, I let go of old parts of myself. I let myself die consciously, which, that's a whole area of our society that we, maybe don't necessarily always celebrate, is like death and how to approach our own death. So I really appreciate just being able to continuously birth myself anew. It feels like even being in a relationship, it's like we're always having to get to know each other for the first time. It feels like all the time. So we joke, because we're on like season 2, but it should be like season 10 of our relationship, because we've had many versions of our relationship die over the last 4 years. So yeah, along with the breath, I mean, we've met so many incredible people. We've gone to so many incredible spaces, and it feels like there's just this guide that's always with you wherever you go, that's just showing you, here you go, here's the next path, here you go. All of a sudden you're at the center of love. Of course, here you go, here's these people, and you should go here. And it's like, I've had to let go of control. I've had to let go of knowing or expecting or, having any sense of really what's going on. I've come to a place of just total surrender, total trust, and just keep committing to your breath, because every time I do, magic happens. And the number of miracles that have occurred since we began this journey of breathing consciously, it's very challenging to keep track of. And there's just immense gratitude for all the different ceremonies, all the different themes that we breathe through, all the different folks that we've been able to support, all the different people that have shared, the impact that the breath has had in their life. And that's really what keeps me doing this, is just this feeling of like, there's just so much more out there that we're not fully accessing. And our breath is the most sacred technology we have to learn about ourselves, to connect to spirit, to connect to the ancestors, to connect to spirit guides, plant guides. Like, there's just infinite ways that the breath can open your consciousness to different aspects of being here on this planet that maybe we're not used to doing in our daily doings. So yeah, I just appreciate the time and space to share. And I wrote 4 pages of notes, but I actually completely diverted. So I hope I covered at least enough about the breath in a way that gets you a little curious to maybe explore it on your own. And I thought what we could do is a bit of a guided breath practice with the crystal bowls. So often in different ceremonial events that we put on, there's a whole smorgasbord of instruments that come in to provide extra assistance with sound healing. I thought I would bring the crystal bowls, and you may notice that they're all different colors. So they're related to each of your chakras. So we'll just do a simple like 10-minute breathing exercise, and I'll cue up the breath a little bit more in detail. And we'll go from our root chakra, which is the red bowl, all the way up to the violet bowl, which is your crown chakra. We'll just have a bit of an experience. Thank you.